Welcome to Good Day Street Talk. Antoine Lewis reporting. Here's what we're working on today. We are just days away from one of the most important midterm elections in modern history. Ballots include a number of governor races nationally, including New York. Also at stake, a possible transfer of power on Capitol Hill as the so-called blue wave could really shake things up in D.C. But this has also been one of the most divisive election cycles, with negative ads and rhetoric defining certain races. Now, to that end, let's head to New Jersey in the Senate race between the incumbent Democrat Bob Menendez and Republican challenger Bob Hugin. To break all of this down, please welcome our panel. Democratic strategist Andre Richardson, Alexandra Wilkes, Executive Director of America Rising PAC, and Eric Anquist, friend to the show, the Assistant Managing Editor for Crain's New York Business. Good morning to all of you. Okay, I can breathe now. Let's just hop right in there. Let's talk about the Menendez race, and the ads is just a lot of negativity with that. Just a little bit of background on that. Of course, he's coming off of that mistrial for corruption charges from about a year ago, which tainted him to some degree. So your thoughts on the Menendez candidate looking into this one?
Sure. So this race for New Jerseyans is a lot closer than we'd like it to be. When we're talking blue wave, no one was really looking at New Jersey as a part of that narrative. But, you know, Democrats still find themselves well positioned. Menendez is up between 4 to 6 points. Folks know he's a fighter. He pulled himself up from the bootstraps, held pretty much every local office from school board all the way up to U.S. Senate. He's been a champion on immigration reform, and he's been a champion on Obamacare. So, folks, I think he'll be successful next Tuesday.
Alexandra Wilkes, what say you?
Well, look, we have a tale of the two Bobs here, right? So you have Bob Hugin, Bob Menendez, both come from the same place. Bob Menendez has spent his life being a career politician, whereas Bob Hugin went into the private sector and did incredible things. And so I think, though, what you were saying about the corruption trial is that the corruption trial has really taken a toll on Menendez's popularity within the state, and so much so that he, in the primaries, basically a no-namer with no money, garnered a fair amount of the vote against him. And we also know that he's having trouble ginning up Hispanic support for him, which is troubling for a lot of Democrats. I think for national Democrats, the concern here is that if they are playing in New Jersey, then that's taking away precious time and resources away from other Democrats. Chuck Schumer's Senate Majority PAC has already had to put in about $6.5 million into New Jersey. That's $6.5 million that's not going to Claire McCaskill in Missouri or Bill Nelson in Florida.
Eric?
The only reason this is a race is because of the indictment. And he wasn't convicted, but that did taint Menendez, and his approval rating is very low. It's maybe 25–30%. He may be the winner with the lowest approval rating in recent history. And the reason he will probably win is because New Jersey is a blue state, and the headwinds for Republicans are really tough because Trump is not popular in New Jersey. So if you don't like Trump and you want Congress to be a check on Trump, you're going to vote for the Democrat, even if you have to hold your nose, and that's what I think a lot of voters are going to do in Menendez's case.
So with Bob Hugin, he's an ex-drug company CEO. A lot of his own money went into those ads. Has he hitched himself to the Trump campaign as some of the other ones nationally have done in these races?
No, he hasn't, because in New Jersey and states like that, sort of blue states or swing states, moderate states, you don't want to run with the president. Now, if you're running out west where the president is very popular, or maybe in the east end of Long Island where he's still popular, then you'd want to hitch your wagon to Trump. But otherwise, you're going to say, I'm independent, I'm moderate, I will agree with the president or disagree with him when it's good for our state. And so that's what Bob Hugin is doing. I just think he picked the wrong year to run, and any other year he'd have a much better chance. This year, he may come within 4 or 5 points, but I think it would be a big surprise if he does win.
Alexander, are you surprised that Menendez is having trouble connecting to the Latino community, who's been a staunch supporter of and is a member of?
Well, look, I think that the corruption just has generally taken a toll on him with all communities out there. That when you're one of 12 sitting U.S. senators ever to be indicted, and the trial dominates the headlines in New Jersey for several months, that's just going to really take a hit. Your numbers are going to take a hit in those circumstances. So I think that he's having trouble getting all of these groups to be enthusiastic about his candidacy, which provides a real opening for Bob Hugin, because if at the end of the day, after watching all of the ads and watching all of the coverage of the trial, that Democrats just say, I'm sitting home, then that's a win for Bob Hugin. And I should also note, too, that the Menendez strategy is a particularly interesting one in that they're really counting on the bottom of the ticket to carry the top of the ticket, which is a very unusual place to be. So they're counting on those congressional races out in the western suburbs of New Jersey to really drive home the race for Bob Menendez. But the only problem with that is that we've seen not so much the generic level, but at the battleground level, that those races are tightening. And so if their goal is to use those races as the springboard from which they will win the campaign, I think that there are some weaknesses with that strategy.
Your thoughts on that strategy, Andre?
I actually think that's a great strategy. There's 5 competitive races happening right now in New Jersey, and they're all held by Republicans. Democrats are either in a dead heat or have a chance to actually win. Cook Political Report has given them all as a toss-up. And to your earlier point about Hugin hitching himself to Donald Trump, he's actually fundraised for Donald Trump. Folks know him to be a Chris Christie and Donald Trump protege. The $25 million he spent on negative ads came out of his own personal money. The more people that recognize who Bob Hugin is tend to not like him. I mean, here is a greedy pharmaceutical exec that sold blood cancer patients prescriptions that were $1 and made $600 off each and every one of them. So on one side you have Bob Menendez that's been a champion for fighting for health care, and then you have Bob Hugin that's increased cancer medication for folks. So I mean, it's clear to me, and it's clear to most folks within the state.
Your projection, whom do you see this Senate race going to?
It's going to be close. It's going to come down to turnout in Essex County, Hudson County, and Bergen County. I see Bob Menendez winning by 4 points.
Alex?
I think that Bob Hugin has a real chance to pull this out, but I think it depends entirely on how the congressional races do and if they can buoy Senator Menendez to re-election.
Sir Eric?
It's all about voter enthusiasm. It's not about persuading swing voters. It's about your base coming out. And right now, from what we've seen, not from the polls, because you can't really tell who's going to vote in a poll, but from the special elections that happens, the Democratic base is more enthusiastic right now, the anti-Trump voters, and they are the ones who are going to show up at the polls. And once they're there, they're going to vote for Menendez.
All right, we'll leave it there. Coming up next, everybody, New York incumbents also being challenged at the Senate and gubernatorial races. We're going to talk about this and break it down with our panel when we return.